that Tesla is trending towards a monopoly. As an example, Ford is losing $1.6 billion per quarter on electric vehicles, and Lucid and Rivian, both of which are EV-only startups, are close to running out of cash and have effectively stopped growing. These results prove that Tesla has a giant lead in making electric vehicles at scale that are both affordable and profitable, with the kicker being that these same EVs could become next-generation transportation units with the advent of AI-powered self-driving technology. This transition is slated to have the same impact to the car industry that the iPhone had on mobile telecommunications and computing, yet most are still dismissing that this is a possibility. Let me walk you through why most people are in for a giant surprise as we reach the end of this decade, and it all starts with Tesla's ambitions in entirely rethinking what a car should be versus what it is today. Tesla believes it can get many of the cars in its over 5 million unit fleet and all new cars being sold today to become self-driving robotaxis by leveraging the existing 8-camera and onboard computer hardware suite that is shipped with every Tesla car today. A software update, potentially with its version 12 iteration, will upgrade these cars from manually driven cars to cars that can drive themselves without the need of an attentive driver. The company is beginning to trial this software with its customer base, hoping to have a finalized version by the end of the year. On top of this, Tesla has been on a mission to dramatically bring down the cost and affordability of an electric vehicle. Thus far, this strategy has allowed Tesla to have the best-selling car in the world with its Model Y. With EV tax credits in the United States, the Model Y starts at $35,000, which is $10,000 less than the average new car price in the US. This is quite an achievement, especially since Tesla unveiled its Model 3 sedan in 2016, which was slated to launch with a $35,000 starting price. 8 years later, Tesla is offering the same starting price with EV incentives in an SUV form factor and 8 years worth of inflation. Even with 30% inflation over the last 8 years and a larger form factor, Tesla still makes upwards of 20% margin on its electric vehicles while offering some of the most affordable EVs on the market. Both the Model Y and the Model 3 can be leased for under $400 per month. In the same period, gas cars are becoming more expensive as legacy automakers continue to prioritize profits over affordability. EV prices are coming down while gas car prices are going up. Not a good sign for the gas car industry long term. This means that the strategy Tesla is deploying of having affordable, profitable, and self-driving EVs that will eventually become the next generation of transportation, which many have thought is overly ambitious and downright pie-in-the-sky thinking, is beginning to bear fruit. This becomes quite obvious once we start looking at Tesla's competition, especially in the United States. Starting with the legacy automakers, we are already well aware that these companies are pausing, delaying, or canceling their EV plans for the foreseeable future, including brands like Ford, GM, Volkswagen, and others. Once we look at their financials, it's clear to see why. If we take Ford's Q4 2023 earnings results, their EV division has stalled at 34,000 units sold per quarter for the last 3 quarters, while their average selling prices have dropped by 12% and their losses increased by 50% from $1.1 billion loss per quarter to $1.6 billion. And on dealer lots, Ford EVs have days of inventory of well over 100 days. Dealers ideally want to have inventories of 60 days or less. The story is the same with other legacy automakers and their electric vehicles. On the other hand, if we look at Tesla's results, the company was able to grow their sales over the same 3-quarter period by 5%, while generating $2 billion of income in the fourth quarter. While Ford lost $1.6 billion from selling 34,000 EVs, Tesla made $2 billion from selling 484,000 EVs. Again, the story is the same across every legacy automaker. But this continues to get more grim for Tesla's competitors if we look at EV startups like Lucid and Rivian. For the fourth quarter of 2023, Rivian reported deliveries of about 14,000, which is a 10% increase over the same period, but loss per car accelerated to negative $113,000 per car. That means that for every car Rivian sold in Q4, they lost about $113,000. The story gets even worse when we look at Lucid, with deliveries of about 1,700 cars in the same quarter, but losing losing about $377,000 per car. In either case, Rivian and Lucid are both guiding to flat sales in 2024, which means that the levers they need to pull to lower costs and become profitable will not be available to them for the next 12 months, at least. Even though Rivian in their fourth quarter filing said they were looking to reduce costs by as much as 50%, it will be nearly impossible without increasing volumes. Auto manufacturing is heavily dependent on scale. If Rivian is already losing more than $100,000 per car and they are not expecting to grow much in the next year, then they will not be able to spread out their cost over more cars in order to increase their profits per car. The company is already planning to lay off about 10% of its staff to try and reduce costs, but it is difficult to see how this will be a big enough step in order for the company to become profitable. Another issue arises when we look at how much cash both of these companies have on hand. Rivian has about $8 billion of cash on hand, while Lucid has a little under $1.4 billion. At current cash burn rates, Rivian has about a year and a half of cash left, while Lucid has roughly 6 months. Without raising money for their operations, both companies will be forced to either liquidate their assets, dramatically slash their production capacity, which further increases their cost per car, or file for bankruptcy. In Rivian's case, it could be likely that they're able to raise cash in order to make it to the release of their next generation vehicle, which will be more affordable, while Lucid's only real hope is to be taken private by the Saudi fund that owns 60% of the company. And to be clear, I am a big fan of both companies' products, but if you can't make money selling stuff, you're not going to be around for very long. But in all cases above, the biggest issue facing all these automakers is that their scale of production for electric vehicles is not quite there yet. Tesla is making about 500,000 cars per quarter, while its competition is making less than 10% of that amount. While almost all of Tesla's competitors are struggling to enter the EV space, Tesla has reached a 2 million per year run rate of EVs with only 4 models: the Model S, 3, X, and Y. They've been able to achieve this with little to no advertising and up until very recently with above average prices related to the broader markets. A notable exception here is BYD, which is a Chinese automaker, and this company has surpassed Tesla in pure EV sales per quarter. However, it is important to know that BYD primarily sells its cars in the Chinese market, sells its cars at a much lower price point than Tesla, and has yet to prove it can make a profit on its EV lineup. However, because of the company's ability to offer EVs at a very affordable price, like the company Seagull, a compact car that sells for about $11,000 US, BYD has already taken massive market share away from legacy car companies, especially players like Volkswagen. What's of note here is that Tesla is selling about the same number of EVs per quarter as BYD, but without an affordable compact car, and up until very recently, without its Cybertruck pickup. However, for Tesla's ability to reach monopoly status, it is much less about the Cybertruck and much more about the compact car. Based on Tesla's guidance, they are aiming to build an EV platform that reduces costs by as much as 50% by revolutionizing the manufacturing process. This should allow the company to build an EV that's somewhere around the $25,000 starting price before any federal or state EV incentives that will be sold in the millions of units per year, with the company having a long-term target to reach 20 million cars sold per year from their entire lineup. This means that for the first time in a long time, a US buyer could have access to a brand new car that happens to be electric that is under $25,000 with loads of software-driven features, high safety scores, and driving dynamics that are far superior to comparable gas vehicles due to its EV drivetrain. Even with this product in the wings, the biggest piece that will virtually secure Tesla's monopoly is not solely due to its ability to make a very affordable car, but make a very affordable car that can drive itself. If we look at the auto landscape, there are no players that exist that are solving for self-driving technology that are low cost and high scale. With BYD's claim in August of 2023 that full self-driving is essentially quote-unquote impossible, we're only left with players outside of Tesla that are solving for self-driving technology with very expensive hardware. Players like Waymo, Baidu, Zoox, and others rely heavily on technologies like LiDAR, ultrasonics, and a bunch of other sensors that very rapidly increase the cost of admission for self-driving manufacturing. As impressive as these technologies are, the cost of manufacturing a self-driving car with these sensors runs somewhere in the six-digit range, with estimates varying between $120,000 per car to upwards of $300,000. This is because the companies have decided to solve self-driving cars with brute force. Throw every sensor you can at the problem, map every road that the cars can operate in, and figure out how to make it all work without running someone over. Miraculously, many have figured out how to make this work, but at the expense of scale and cost. It is much more difficult to build many self-driving cars that are this expensive versus a company that can make the same car for under $20,000, including all the hardware that's needed to operate said cars. In addition, the rollout of these vehicles becomes increasingly difficult as every road that's meant for these cars to operate in has to be mapped, and every little change has to be recorded so that cars don't accidentally end up in ditches. This approach sets an artificial cap on self-driving technology. Regardless of how impressive the technology is, if it's too expensive to make and too cumbersome to roll out, it is not a viable business in the long term. The breakthrough needed is not the self-driving technology itself, but the manufacturing system that allows you to make self-driving cars that can be a viable business in the long term. This is Tesla's bread and butter. Creating manufacturing systems that convert state-of-the-art technologies into mass market realities. And this is precisely what Tesla is achieving with the development of its full self-driving technology and its compact car. The previous four models, the S, 3, X, and Y, have allowed Tesla to build up enough data and expertise to make an 8-camera plus onboard computer system that drives itself. This system likely costs no more than $2,000 all in, and the kicker is that it'll drive just as good as a Waymo car at a fraction of the cost and at 1,000 times the scale. If we fast forward to the end of the decade and we assume Tesla's execution has allowed them to achieve autonomy at the level of a Waymo or higher, which they can then beam to a fleet of at least 30 million cars, Tesla will easily have the most autonomous miles per year out of anyone in the world by a factor of at least 1,000. And it is the marriage of affordable EVs that happen to drive themselves that will allow the company to achieve this. For a competitor to get remotely close, they would have to do the following. First, they would have to come up with a self-driving system that will cost around $2,000. Second, they would put these systems in a car that costs no more than $20,000 to produce. Third, they would have to make millions of these cars per year. And fourth, and most importantly here, they have to make them profitably. Thus far, we have little data that points to any other player being able to make an EV profitably, let alone millions of them per year. The only player that can make many of them, BYD, has concluded that self-driving is impossible. In the meantime, Tesla has launched its version 12 self-driving software that is navigating US roads at the level of a Waymo car. Tesla achieved this with about 1 year of development by offloading the code to an AI instead of a team of humans. As Tesla's data collecting capacity grows and more Teslas populate the world, and as they ramp up their compute capability at its headquarters, the performance of their self-driving vehicles will only get better from here on out. Given all of this, is it really that unlikely that Tesla will have a monopoly on transportation? Especially when A, they are the only player that can make self-driving cars profitably in the millions of units, and B, because their self-driving cars don't need a human to drive them, which will then remove the most expensive thing from a car today, making per-mile costs of transportation plummet to pennies on the dollar. The clue here is that Tesla is already beginning to offer licensing partnerships for its self-driving system. The company is clearly confident that they have what it takes to solve for self-driving in a very cost-effective manner. No one is taking them up on that offer, probably because most players are skeptical something like this is even possible. It surely sounds like pie in the sky when a company claims that they figured out how to make cars drive themselves at a fraction of the cost than anyone else can. Time will tell who's right, but I'm willing to bet the company that has continually achieved feats that most thought impossible probably knows a thing or two about making impossible things a reality. And given the current trajectory of development with the self-driving software, my guess is that they're much closer to that reality than most realize. I talk more about this concept in the video that I linked here about Tesla's strategic masterpiece that will allow them to achieve this goal. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel and give a like to the video as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.